Hi, my name is Lawrence Vernon. This month we've been looking at the theme of what it takes to keep things fresh in our lives. The first week we talked about what it means to keep ourselves fresh, and then our homes fresh, and then our finances fresh. And this week what we want to do is think about what it means to bring fresh into the world. One of the fundamental qualities of a follower of Christ is that we don't live unto ourselves. If we look at the example of Christ, Jesus very clearly demonstrates that the fundamental principle of the kingdom of God or the family of God is to give generously, to bring blessing to others. And that is, of course, demonstrated no more powerfully than in the incarnation of Jesus Christ, where he comes and he leaves his family and he leaves his country, and he comes and his Father, and he comes to be with us and to bring us good news. Just recently, I read a compelling book. It's not for the faint of heart, and definitely you would have to read it with discerning and with a thoughtful mind. It's written by a gentleman by the name of Alan Hirsch, and it's called The Forgotten Ways: Rediscovering the Apostolic Mission. I think I may have got the tagline just a little bit wrong, but this book by Alan Hirsch is looking at the phenomenon of church growth, church planting movements, or disciple-making movements, and he looks particularly at the incredible growth that took place in the early church from 100 AD to 310 AD, and without any structures and without any formal training or printing presses or seminaries, the church really literally exploded. And the question is, what does it take for that kind of ethos to be the foundation of the church? Another place where this kind of explosive growth was manifested was in China, where we had the underground church that exploded once the expatriate missionaries were required to leave. And there was an authentic, homegrown version of Christ's followers that met in house churches. And so he presents, Alan Hirsch presents six fundamental principles of disciple-making movements. And I want to just go share those very briefly with you and invite you to think about those as you are disciple makers in your home. The first one is the Lordship of Jesus Christ. And the absolutely beautiful and compelling picture of what it means for Jesus to be the Lord that is worthy of our love and our trust and our submission and obedience. And what I understood in a new and fresh way about the Lordship of Jesus Christ is that the reason that he is the supreme commander of the universe is because of the quality of his person, that there's no one else that is like him, that he is nicer and better and gooder than anyone else that's out there. And as our creator and as our redeemer, he has demonstrated at the very deep and profound level the quality of his character and his love towards us. And so as Paul says, it's the love of Christ that compels us. And so it's really a discovery of the overwhelming love of Christ. And so the first principle to think about as we take fresh into the world as families is to teach our children the all-surpassing beauty of Jesus Christ, that going to church is just a small part of the wonder of worshiping Jesus, of following him and knowing him. Then the second one is discipleship or disciple-making. And church planting movements are really an expression of disciple-making structures and systems. And the basic structure, the basic place where disciples are made is in homes. Parents with children, families working together to teach our children to follow in obedience and loving obedience to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. And so those two go together. What does it mean to train our children and to help them to actually understand what it means to be a Christ follower? The third one is what he calls a missional incarnational impulse. And those words are all deliberately chosen. Missional means that we go. Incarnational means missional means we go out. Incarnational means we go deep. And an impulse means that we go with strength, with vigor. It's like a sneeze. And one of the characteristics of the church is that the focus is on bringing a message, and the way that it's brought is by being close to others. And the question that I want to ask parents, ask you, as you think about bringing fresh into the world, is what can we do to model for our children the principle of coming close to others, to be with them in their suffering, to help and to serve them, and to bring the beauty of the Lord Jesus Christ into their lives. And so thinking of ways to engage your neighborhood, thinking of ways to engage your community, and show your children that we live our life that way as Christians. So the fourth principle that he talks about is what he calls liminality and communitas. Now, I'd never heard these words before, but liminality basically means, basically describes the experience or the galvanizing experience that suffering creates, or that risk-taking creates. And if you think about what it means to live incarnationally and to go out into the community and to engage the people and their needs around us, that experience is actually what creates this, wow, this doesn't feel safe. And something that he mentions, and I think it's true, is that when we're middle class with families, one of our impulses to make sure that our families stay safe. We don't want to expose our children to danger. And that very impulse to protect our families from being exposed to danger can actually cause us to lose our focus on being involved in missions and being involved in meaningful ways to bless others. And so what happens is when we take a risk and we actually do that with other people, it forges us into a level of connection. This is what he's talking about, communities. It's beyond just being community, but it's a deep, profound level of connection that binds our hearts together and binds us together in that mission. And so a good way to do this is to do that with our families and with other families in the community. I know one of the things that really changed my life was going on short-term mission trips. And that's obviously going to be for older kids, but you can go on short-term mission trips with your younger kids, thinking of deliberately of things that you can do that would be age appropriate to them, which is preparing them to go on longer short-term mission trips around the world. The next one is what he called APAST, which is really looking at Ephesians 4, where it talks about the different roles in the church and just understanding that the body, husband, wife, children, community, different kinds of leadership are necessary. And so this would be the apostolic, which is kind of the go, the prophetic, which is telling the truth, the evangelistic, which is proclaiming the truth, the shepherding, which is taking care of and nurturing, and then pastoral, which is more teaching roles. And as families, we need to include all of those different dimensions into our families in order to be able to portray to our children the different dimensions. And then the last one is flexible structures. Of the 6 things that he describes as what it takes to be a missional disciple-making movement. And that's flexible structures. And as I've thought about the church, going to church, and actually being a force for mission and community, I've been really convicted that the family is the flexible structure that God has ordained through which His work can go into the world. And so, as we think about what it means to be parents, to keep our lives fresh, whether it's our personal lives, whether it's our homes and relationships, whether it's our finances, all of that's done for the purpose of bringing freshness into the world. It's beautifully summarized in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to 3, where God says to Abraham, I want you to leave your country and your clan and your father's house, and I want you to go to a land that I'm going to show you. And God says to him, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you a blessing, and all the families of the earth are going to be blessed through you. Now, what's really profound is when God calls Abraham to do that, Abraham is actually a metaphor of what Jesus himself does. He leaves his country and his clan and his father's house, and he goes on a journey following God humbly, and he comes to take all the blessing that was given to him as God and man, and he came to bless us. And all the families of the earth were blessed through Jesus, which is one of the children of Abraham. Now, why is that important to us? Well, if we're going to be followers of Christ, not only do we want to practice that, but we want to teach our children to practice that. And that's the way that we can be partners with God in fulfilling this promise in our homes and in our communities to bring blessing into the world, to bring freshness into the world, to bring flourishing to the world. And so it's my hope that as you reflect on these different topics and different ideas, that you'll be encouraged to bring fresh, and that you can flourish under the Lordship of Jesus Christ and bring flourishing to those around you as we walk humbly together with Him. Thank you for joining us in this journey.